Welcome to Purposely Peaceful. I'm your host, Jessica Rivera, a licensed marriage and family therapist and a quantum hypnosis practitioner. This podcast is where real life meets inner peace. You'll get honest conversations, practical tools, and soulful guidance to help you live with more clarity, calm, and purpose. Welcome back. One of the most common struggles for anyone that is trying to get to a place of inner peace is the struggle between the body and the mind. And in a perfect world, they would be harmoniously working together. But in reality, sometimes that's not exactly how it plays out. You could be doing a lot of inner work, but there are times when your body just isn't being as cooperative as you'd want it to be. And in this case, inner peace needs cooperation from the body. So, for example, maybe you've managed some control over your thoughts. You feel like you're doing a little bit better, but your body is having a different experience that isn't matching what you're telling it. If you've experienced this, you'd know you were trying to be as rational as possible. You're telling yourself everything is fine, but your physical body might be in fight or flight. It might be on high alert, and your efforts to take mental control just don't stand a chance. And for many people, they get triggered because their body is having a reaction, not because their thoughts are telling them, hey, there's a threat here, there's a problem. For some people, it's the thoughts, right? The thoughts then create the physical response. Your body is just as important as your mind, and we want them to work together. That is the goal. We want our mind and our body to work together. So in this episode, I'm going to be talking about why your nervous system doesn't always trust positivity and what we can do about it. Your nervous system is meant to maintain safety, which creates calmness. It is meant to detect threat, because when it does, it sends the body into action because it wants to go back to baseline. It's saying, hey, something's wrong. Ideally, our baseline would be that we feel calm and we feel safe and we can trust the body. But if that's not the case, and your baseline is a little bit more heightened and a little bit more in a state of stress and high alert, that means that what it's signaling to your body is probably pretty intense and pretty loud. And a lot of people start therapy because their body is having some kind of weird response. And it could be heart palpitations and aches and pains and stomach issues, you name it. They undergo a bajillion tests and they all come back negative, which means that most of the time, if nothing is conclusive, the doctors are then assuming that it's likely anxiety. So why does the body do this? There are a few reasons why this could be happening, and it could be that you're naturally wired to be anxious. I would say I fall in that category. And if we've been anxious our whole lives, then we have several years or decades of operating this way. This means that we act based on our anxious behavior. And a lot of times, if we're anxious, negative, or fearful, or anything that's not a positive feeling, a lot of times when something happens, the first second that we feel something, it's usually going to be that feeling that doesn't produce safety in the body. This is where you probably got to explore your deep-rooted beliefs, and you got to start doing the work to figure out how to change that story and change that belief. But this leads to another possible reason, because your ego is loud. It's intense, and it mirrors your body's panic and fear. The ego's job is survival, and it isn't focused on logic. Remember, it won't always use your insight, your intelligence, or your intentions to communicate to your nervous system how to behave. In fact, the ego is probably the opposite of what we need when our body is activated and it's not responding to the healthy thought patterns that we're trying to communicate to it. Another very common reason is any past negative or traumatic experiences. If you've had negative, intense experiences, then your body and your cellular memory take note. For example, the body is known for re-experiencing increased grief and sadness when it's the anniversary of a loss of a loved one or the anniversary of a traumatic event. And I say all this to demonstrate when logically you know you're okay and that nothing is actually wrong, but your body is having an entirely different experience, this tells me that the mind and the body are at a disconnect. I do want to share a little bit about what I've been going through. The last, I would say, 5 months or so, I have been feeling very, very tired. I'm not sure if it's a physical health issue or if it's psychological, but I've been trying to just take it easy. So the holidays came and went. I was very intentional to slow down, to not work so much, schedule some time off. And although that was really nice, ever since then, I have been a little bit in a weird space. I am feeling tired. I feel uneasy. I do want to point out that nothing is wrong. Everything is fine. Everyone I know is alive and healthy, as far as I know, anyway. My life is fine. My marriage is great. My kids are thriving in their own way. I have kids of different ages, and so they're all doing their own thing, staying busy, but all is good. I'm not having any real stress. I just feel like my baseline since probably November has been stress. And I'm not quite sure why, because I was working less. I was taking time off. I was getting things done that had been on my to-do list. And so I'm doing all the logical things, but my body is feeling somewhat stressed. And I don't really know why. Even right now, I know that there's a lot of things that I want to do. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's probably all the pressure that I put on myself because I have a long list of things that I want to do, hopes and dreams and goals that I'm trying to work towards. And in some areas, I've not made a lot of progress. And certain things I've had to postpone because I just don't have the time or the energy. And so at this point, I'm a little bit confused because I feel physically tired. I feel emotionally okay, but I wouldn't say great. Logically, I feel like everything's fine. I have no concerns. All is well. But physically, it's like my body isn't believing it. And so perhaps there's some more inner work for me to do here. But right now, I still feel a little bit of a disconnect. I have clarity about what I want to do and how I want to approach the situation and how I want to work through it. But my real life is really busy. It's very overwhelming. It's chaotic. We have a lot of kids, a lot of animals, a lot of pressure to help others, and I just don't have a lot of downtime. When I record an episode, it's usually my lunchtime, as it is right now, and it's my limited alone time that I put toward things that I need to get done. Sometimes I might find myself scrolling on my phone, but none of those things are bringing me any sense of peace. This is where I'm trying to be more intentional about doing things that are good for me, both for my physical health and my emotional health. I'm going to share a few different grounding practices because this is where we can have more harmony and balance between our mind and our body. The only issue I'm having is that I just don't have a lot of free time. Or if I'm going to go do something, someone will likely be with me when I go do something. I definitely am craving more alone time, but realistically, that's just not the phase of life that I'm in. It doesn't work so much for where I live. So I just wanted to share, this is where I'm at. This is what I'm doing. And recording episodes and thinking of what to write has been such a gift. And it's surprisingly one of the ways that I feel grounded is when I spend some time with what I want to say. What do I want to share? So basically, my current experience is that I'm still going through it, but here are some of the things that I am trying to do a little more of. These are the things that a lot of my clients say have a lot of success with, and so I'm going to share them here. And remember, grounding practices, they're meant to bring us back to our body because our attention then comes back to us. Because most of the time, the mind is all over the place and it's not present. It's not in the body, right? We're thinking about tomorrow. We're thinking about later. We're thinking about yesterday. We're thinking about a year ago. And when our minds are traveling to all these different places, that's how I would describe not being present. And when we're grounding ourselves, our intention is to become very present and self-aware with the body. So one of the things that we can do is slow down. Because if you're in a rush, then the odds are that you are under pressure, which brings in frustration and anxiety. It's not a very good feeling. Slowing down requires conscious effort to move slower, think slower. This helps send the signal to the body that it's okay. There's no rush here. We are slowing down to bring awareness to our body. And by slowing down, you can practice meditation, breath work, or just sitting or being in slowness, or sitting in stillness and just being present with your attention. Something else that has been really helpful for a lot of people, myself included, are sensory experiences. And these are designed to pull you out of your head and back into your body. And for a lot of people, putting their feet on the earth, on the grass, on the dirt, sand, wherever you may be, triggers your senses and pulls your attention back to you, back to your body, back to where you are, back to what you're feeling. Pulls your attention back to you. This could also mean that you go outside and you focus your attention on how it feels when the wind blows or how the sun feels on your skin. You close your eyes and you focus on the feeling. It could be pleasant, it could be unpleasant, but the whole point is that it's bringing you back into yourself. What also is really helpful is physical movement, because it can help ground you when you are working out, going on a walk, maybe even swinging on a hammock or jumping on a trampoline. Usually you are focusing on the sensation that it's bringing to your body. And that's what we want. If we're working out, maybe our muscles are burning. If we're going on a walk, we focus on where we're planting our feet as we walk. And that's what we want. We want to be reminded that we have a body and where is it and what is it doing. And a lot of times we also need to reduce stimulation, because most of the time if we're struggling with getting the body to relax, then there's usually some type of overwhelm already taking place. Reducing stimulation means less noise, maybe turning down the lights, less movement. This also includes your phone. I like to leave my phone charging in a different room so that it's just not as accessible, because I don't enjoy constant notifications or the distraction that it causes. I'm in a phase where I love silence. It's probably because I don't get too much of it. If you have it accessible to you, enjoy it, because there's so much value in learning to be in silence without immediately feeling it, because silence means stillness. And this is really, really good for your nervous system. That's something that the nervous system really craves. That is peace. A big part of learning how to ground yourself is to practice, practice, practice. And to be honest, sometimes these practices won't work. We might try some of these grounding exercises and we're going to feel like they aren't working. But remember, that's the whole point, that you do this even if your body doesn't believe it. But if you keep trying, keep practicing, doing your inner work, eventually it clicks. And that's what we're working toward, that moment where it finally clicks. Meditation, breath work, and being in nature are some of my favorite ways to ground myself. Meditation and breath work, I prefer to do it in silence. And so when that isn't accessible to me, it's not as easy for me to do that. Maybe that means I go to the beach, or we go to the mountains on the weekend, or maybe I go visit my dad, who has a big backyard and this beautiful creek that runs through it. It's easy to let overwhelm and the busyness of life occupy us so much that we don't even focus on what we need. Even when I do have moments alone, there are days where I can meditate easily, and then other days I just can't get into it. But it's because my nervous system is worked up and I have a hard time getting it to settle down. What really helps is that I always find myself returning to it some other day, and then it finally works and I can slip into meditation a lot easier. And when I do it, I remember how much I enjoy it, and it just encourages me to keep trying. I know a lot of people struggle with meditation because you're like, well, what is it? What do you do? But there's so many different ways to meditate, and it isn't just silencing your mind and thinking of nothing, although that really does help because it helps with focusing. Once the body starts to feel safer, it becomes easier to access the big picture. You are no longer constantly overwhelmed. You're calmer. You're less reactive. Your body can trust that it can relax, even if sometimes relaxation only happens sometimes. Grounding practices work best when they're combined with positive and neutral thinking, because inner peace is about learning to feel calm in your mind just as much as in your body. They go hand in hand. And then the best part, the more that you practice, positive thinking begins to feel achievable. It becomes enough. Before I wrap up, I want to tell you about next week's episode, because this is something that I hear all the time. And honestly, it might save you years of living on autopilot. My next episode is called Life's Too Short to Do What Somebody Else Wants. It's for the person who wakes up and realizes, wait, how did I get here? This job, this pace that we're going at, these expectations, this version of success. And somewhere along the way, you realize that maybe it's not what you want anymore. I'll be talking about what happens when you recognize that you're living life on default and what it actually takes to start choosing differently. If even a small part of you feels that, make sure you catch next week's episode. Thank you so much for spending time with me. I'll catch you guys on the next one.